Hi there, I am the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit and for the soul. It is titled, In Giving and Receiving, we all enjoy the ultimate free meal. I recently came across the following. It is a cliche that most cliches are true. But then, like most cliches, that cliche is untrue. It is attributed to that great wit and mind, Stephen Fry. I like it. It speaks to me. There is truth in many cliches and many sayings, but there is also untruth. And one I found that's not true is the following. There is no such thing as a free meal. It's a saying that comes from that cynical, untrusting place about the human condition, that nothing is given for free in life, that people always have a secondary motive, that no one gives wholly from their heart without an ulterior motive. And yet, in giving wholly from our heart, that is the true joy in living. As Kahlil Gibran said, there are those who give with joy, and that joy is their reward. As I look back at my life, I cannot even begin to count the number of free meals I have been given. I'm not just talking about food here, by the way. Throughout my life, people have given to me from nothing but pure love. There have been many helping hands, some visible and yet others invisible, other help invisible. Some have given to me before I was even here, that I have benefited from too. People who are no longer alive have given to me without knowing it, I suppose. I have been freely fed by many friends, by many folk throughout my life. So many free meals. I've eaten and I have certainly been filled. Thank you. Thank you. And from this place where I have been fed, I've been able to give, and others have been fed too, and they were filled too, I hope. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. I'm going to share with you a piece of wisdom that has been foundational to my ministry. A gift given that has continued to feed me and those who I serve these last 13 years. It all began on the 1st of August, Yorkshire Day, 2010, my ministry, and what a blessing it's been to me and hopefully to others. The piece is titled In the Soup by Robert Walsh. Now, interestingly, it's interesting to me anyway, Robbie Walsh really, as he was affectionately known, did a short exchange ministry at the two congregations that I serve during the 1980s when my old minister from Cross Street in Manchester, John Midgley, served as minister here in Altrincham and Urmston. Sadly, Robbie died a few years ago. That said, his wisdom still feeds so many. Thank you. So this is In the Soup by Robert Walsh. My dictionary says that the word minister is etymologically related to the word minestrone. I am not making this up. They are both derived from a Latin root that means to serve. The image of ministry as minestrone is particularly apt to the ministry church people do all together that make us a ministering congregation. Each bean, each vegetable, each unit of macaroni or pinch of spice gives not only its substance to the soup, but also its spirit, its texture, its colour, its flavour and aroma. Each person offers a unique set of gifts. And if we do our job organising well, each gift will be creatively matched with a need, so that the whole business becomes a warm, nourishing, life-giving, religious community. All who serve the church and the principles and values we hold dear are ministers. If you are doing part of that work, you are doing ministry, no matter how unlikely it may seem. You are in the soup, the minestrone of ministry. Isn't it wonderful? From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. I recently had the honour of participating in Ministry in the Making at Great Hucklow in Derbyshire, a retreat really and those in attendance were newly qualified ministers, or those training currently for the ministry, or those about to begin their training. One of those present was Janine Sims, who will be on placement with the congregations I serve from September. It was a real privilege to spend time with them, with all the people, and participate in workshops and other activities. I was supposed to be there as what's regarded as a experienced minister, I guess really, which is a bit worrying for me, but there you go. And the ministers and the training ministers I met were, on the whole, a very impressive group. I feel that our chalice is in good hands. Molly had a wonderful time, and it seems that all who were present fell in love with her. Well, who doesn't? This included the chef for the week, actually, who ensured she had a sausage for breakfast every morning. This, unfortunately, has led to one or two problems since we got back home, as she's got a little bit fussier about eating. Who'd want to eat kibble after sausages, really? I mean, I wouldn't. They did love her, though, and she came home with several teddy bears, as she kept being given one by the students every time she went to the chapel to worship. She came back with a teddy bear. And they want her back. And apparently I can accompany her too for when we do Ministry in the Making next year too. So that's good news. The whole week was a wonderful example of both giving and receiving. All certainly gained and abundantly, including Molly. The theme for this year's Ministry in the Making was inspired by Kahlil Gibran's words on giving, particularly the following lines. Then said a rich man, "Speak to us of giving." And he answered, "You give but little when you give of your possessions. It's when you give of yourself that you truly give." Giving of yourself actually is an intimate act. Like the disciples in the feeding of the 5,000, when they gave to those they were feeding face to face, it's an intimate act. In so doing, they were filled, the people they were feeding, but so were the disciples too. Both were filled with love by this intimate interaction, face to face, not giving from a distance, just giving money, but giving of themselves. And somehow in that engagement, I believe God comes alive. And it's the ultimate free lunch because both received from that act of giving. Beautiful. During the week at Ministry in the Making, I was invited to speak about ministry from my experience and my perspective. And I shared the wonderful piece by Robbie Walsh that I shared at the beginning of this devotion that suggests that congregational ministry is akin to soup, particularly minestrone soup. As Walsh highlighted, minestrone and ministry share the same root. They both mean to serve. Love and service, I believe, are the essence of true religious living. Our Unitarian tradition is a free religious one, and it's an open one. We come together and serve together, although we may not exactly believe in exactly the same way. Thus we celebrate because we come together and serve together, and we create a meal made up of so many ingredients that could satisfy all, and then we serve this meal to those who would like to taste of what we have to offer, hopefully. They just need to know about our meal, I guess. Our purpose is not to merely serve ourselves, but the world outside of our window. We cannot do this alone. We need each other, really. We all have something to add to the flavour and to the substance of the soup. In life, everyone thirsts and hungers, even in our seemingly materially abundant lives, although those things seem to be under threat more so these days. But we can't feed in isolation. We can't feed this hunger in isolation, in self-reliance. We need one another. We need to feed and be fed. It is only fed, this isolation, in that relationship that occurs as we feed one another, like the old story of heaven and hell. That heaven is where we feed one another. Hell is when we try to feed just ourselves and fail. To me, this is the purpose of religious communities like the ones I serve, living, breathing fellowships of love. It's also my experience that in this space, in this relationship, as we serve one another, in this space that occurs in this relationship, that God is truly revealed, that God is once again incarnated in that space between us, in the very act, actually, a verb more than a noun. By giving one to another, we can know the love that is God. You may give it another name, but I would call that God in that space, in that power that comes alive in that space in between us, as we face to face feed one another. I'm going to share with you a little wonderful little tale from my favourite good old Nasruddin. It may speak to you, but then again, it may not. You make sense of this. One day, Nasruddin saw a crowd gathered around a pond. The crowd were watching a priest flailing around in the water, crying out for help. Of course, some people were attempting to rescue, reaching towards the drowning priest and saying, "Give me your hand, give me your hand, give me your hand." But the priest kept on wrestling with the water and shouting out for help. "Help me, help me." And they carried on, "Give me your hand." And he didn't seem to want to give his hand. Finally, Nasruddin stepped forward. "Let me handle this." And he stretched out his hand toward the priest and shouted to the priest, "Take my hand, take my hand, take my hand." And the priest immediately grabbed at Nasruddin's hand so quickly he almost pulled Nasruddin into the water. But the priest was soon extracted from the pond. And someone asked Nasruddin, "What just happened? What happened?" To which he replied, "Well, it's very simple. I knew that this miser would never give anything to anyone. So instead of saying, 'Give me your hand,' I said, 'Take my hand.' And sure enough, he took it." If you are drowning in water, it is advisable to take a helping hand. And we all need help at times to pull us out of the water. Now, apologies if that's mixing too many liquid-based metaphors, but I'm not as sharp as Stephen Fry, so I can't really keep to just one water-based metaphor at a time. He's far more linguistically talented than I, but hopefully you get what I'm trying to say here. No one pulls themselves up from their bootstraps completely alone, all by themselves. From the moment of our births, others are involved in creating who we are and who we become. As the old saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. No one lives entirely from themselves. We are all a part of an interdependent web of relationships that are made of both visible and invisible help. Life has taught me that asking for help is actually but a sign of both strength and a sign of wisdom. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a wise man that will take the hand. It's a sign of good mental, emotional and spiritual health. Of course, it's not enough merely to ask for help. True, healthy humility is about accepting the help that is offered to us. We give to others when we allow them to give to us. Actually, it's a gift that we're offering when we take their hand. Those numerous free meals we are given do not only feed us, they feed all. We're all fed. It's an infinite source. It's not something that will run out, just like the fish, loaves and fishes, I guess. We eat and we are filled by the relationship. Maybe this is what is actually meant by that old cliched saying, there is no such thing as a free meal. It's not true, of course. Sadly, it's a cynical cliche that suggests you shouldn't trust generosity. But maybe what it means is that we all get fed by the meal, or maybe I'm just being too generous there, I don't know. Don't fall for the cynicism. Give and receive abundantly so that we can all eat and we can all be filled. If you do it with joy, joy will be your ultimate reward. Give with joy, not give from your heart, I guess. From the cradle to the grave, we need to keep on giving and receiving wholeheartedly, joyfully actually. We need to keep asking for help when we need help and accept what visible and invisible help is offered. We also need to make ourselves available to be of assistance to others in their need, to be that visible helping hand, and to help bring alive the invisible help too in that space between us. It's not to say we become unhealthily dependent on others and society as a whole. No, it doesn't mean that at all. We are, though, a part of a whole, a complex whole that makes life and it makes community. As we grow and change and become the people that we are, this changes shape and it reforms constantly. It seems that we are being born again and again to new versions of ourselves. Of course, we cannot do this alone. We cannot give birth to ourselves. No one can give birth to themselves. We need help, and sometimes we need to be able to ask for help from others. And in so doing, we are, of course, doing not only a service for ourselves, but to those that can give. They experience something wonderful. We all feed and we are all fed when we live in this kind of relationship, and we are fed abundantly. It's an infinite resource. We all hunger for purpose and meaning. As Viktor Frankl pointed out, we are driven by a will to find meaning and to find purpose. I'd go further actually and suggest we are also driven to find companionship in our increasingly isolated and isolating culture. We need to serve one another or our souls will starve. I have discovered, and I keep on discovering, that our deepest pangs are not satisfied by the food that is laid on the table, but in the relationship that occurs as we feed one another and as we drink from one another's cup. This is fellowship, a living, breathing fellowship of love. This is where the joy in living comes to life. We are all in this soup of life together, and it's our task, I believe, to serve one another. We can all minister. We can all add substance and flavour to the minestrone soup in which we all share. Remember, we're all in the soup together. Let's all add our substance and our flavour. Let's offer one another those free meals and accept those meals that are offered to us. There is more than enough to go round. The giving and receiving of love is an infinite commodity. It is the joy in living, in life itself. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. I'm going to end this devotion with some final words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more, and we can all bless. We bless when we give ourselves wholeheartedly to life, to enjoy that ultimate meal. You're welcome at the table. So some final words of blessing. May the God of your heart bless you as you return to your life. May it be with you as you face the quandaries, fears and puzzles of the coming days. May the God of your heart live peacefully in your being, and may it enable you to bring alive its love in all the places of trouble in this world, in all the troubled souls you meet. May you carry that love with you as you reach out your hands, and may it do so in all that you feel, in all that you think, in all that you say, in all that you do. Go in love, return, and feed one another abundantly. Amen.